The small French village, with its stone houses and slate roofs, was bathed in the golden light of late afternoon. Leah, wearing a tweed jacket and leather boots, strolled through the streets, observing the small shops and families gathered in the squares. The scent of fresh bread and wine hung in the air, while the gentle sounds of conversation and laughter echoed from the local cafes and restaurants. Flowers on the house balconies created a welcoming atmosphere, and the orange and pink-tinged sky brought a sense of nostalgia and calm. She stopped in front of an antique shop window, where a pocket watch displayed a design of constellations etched into its lid. The object seemed to pulse slightly, as if responding to an invisible rhythm. As she picked it up, an intense light appeared on the horizon, reflecting in the village windows. The villagers rushed out into the streets, pointing at the sky, where a celestial object floated above the distant but visible city of Havana. Leah tucked the watch into her pocket, feeling a strange warmth in her hand. That night, she dreamt of a man bent over ancient maps, tracing routes among the stars. The forest near the village, dense and silent, held secrets older than the twisted trees. Joram, a botanist who avoided crowds, found a simple knife beneath exposed roots. The wooden handle, worn smooth by use, seemed to absorb the sunlight filtered through the leaves. The blade, though dull, reflected patterns reminiscent of human veins. He placed it in his backpack, wondering why something so ordinary felt so laden with hidden meaning. Meanwhile, in Havana, artists created paintings inspired by the celestial phenomenon, interpreting it as a portal or a coded message. A musician composed a melody using frequencies captured from the object, while a painter depicted the city under a new starlit sky, where the stars formed unknown symbols. Leah, now in the city, visited an exhibition of these works. One canvas made her tremble. It depicted a figure holding a golden key, surrounded by shadows that looked like outstretched hands. She touched the watch in her pocket, noticing that the constellations engraved on it matched those in the painting. The next morning, Joram took the knife to a local historian. The man examined it carefully, pointing out almost faded markings on the metal. "This isn't an ordinary tool," he said, "but part of a set. Look at these inscriptions. They are celestial coordinates." Meanwhile, Leah followed a clue left by one of the artists, a scribbled address on the back of a canvas. The location was an abandoned observatory, where dusty telescopes pointed north. She adjusted one of them and saw the luminous sphere magnified. Focusing, she realized it wasn't a solid mass, but an intricate rotating mechanism, like the gears of a cosmic clock. The object pulsed, and the watch in her pocket emitted a click. A voice whispered something in a language she didn't know, but understood. The key doesn't open doors, but reveals layers. In the forest, Joram found a second knife identical to the first, embedded in a hollow tree trunk. Together, the blades formed a perfect circle, with inscriptions matching the historian's coordinates. As night fell, the two characters, separated by miles, saw the celestial object divide into brilliant fragments that fell like rain upon Havana. Each held the objects, feeling that the true mystery was only beginning. The fragmented object illuminated Havana like a swarm of metallic fireflies, each piece hovering over different neighborhoods. Leah ran to the central square, where hundreds of people reached out to the fragments, which emitted a low, almost musical hum. One landed at her feet, revealing a translucent surface with patterns similar to the watch. She touched it, and images flooded her mind. An ancient city, towers connected by bridges of light, and a figure dressed in blue, holding a key that had no lock. Meanwhile, Joram pressed the historian about the coordinates. "They point to the constellation Orion," the man explained, "but not to the stars we know. It's as if someone had rearranged the sky." He pointed to a line connecting the knives. "This route leads to a place that no longer exists, or perhaps doesn't yet exist." That night, Leah dreamt again of the mapmaker. This time, he was in a circular room, surrounded by gears that projected holograms of galaxies. "Time is a fabric," he said, "and you are pulling the threads." Upon waking, she realized the watch was marking hours that didn't correspond to the actual day. In Havana, the fragments began to move in synchronicity, forming a network of light over the city. Artists, scientists, and curious onlookers tried to decipher their language, but only Leah and Joram, separated by oceans, perceived the connections: the knives, the watch, the maps. A blind musician, playing a melody based on the fragment's hums, fainted and awoke speaking of doors without handles. Joram, following the coordinates, entered a part of the forest where trees grew in spirals. There, he found a clearing with a circle of stones and a single dead tree, its twisted branches pointing north. Placing the knives in the center of the circle, a blue light erupted from the ground, projecting a replica of the fragmented sphere onto the sky. At the same instant, in Havana, the fragment near Leah emitted a ray that connected the watch to the celestial network. She heard the voice again, this time clear: "The key is the path, not the destination." The historian, observing the phenomenon from afar, muttered to himself, "They are recalibrating the world." Meanwhile, in a secret room beneath Havana, an unknown group monitored the events, their faces illuminated only by screens displaying ancient calculations. One said, "They don't know that the door only opens once." The network of light over Havana began to pulse at different rhythms, like an erratic heart. Leah, still holding the fragment, felt a pressure in her chest, as if the air around her was growing denser. The watch in her pocket warmed, and the constellations engraved on it aligned with the patterns of the celestial object. She ran to the abandoned observatory, where one of the telescopes now pointed directly into the city. Looking through the lens, she didn't see Havana, but the ancient city of her dreams, with towers of light and bridges defying the laws of physics. A fragment of the celestial object hovered over one of the towers, radiating symbols that looked like writing, but belonged to no known language. Joram, in the forest clearing, realized that the knives weren't just projecting a replica of the sphere, but also altering the surrounding environment. The trees began to wither and regenerate in rapid cycles, as if time accelerated and decelerated. The historian who accompanied him recoiled in fear. "This isn't normal," he stammered. "You're messing with something you can't control." Joram ignored the warning and positioned a third knife, found hours earlier in a nearby stream. The circle of blue light expanded, engulfing the clearing and creating a rift in the air, through which it was possible to see Havana. Not the present Havana, but a version where buildings were made of solid light and streets shimmered like rivers of stars. Meanwhile, the secret group beneath Havana activated an ancient machine, carved with the same symbols as Leah's watch. A woman with white hair and dark glasses spoke urgently. "They are synchronizing the fragments, without understanding the cost. If the object reconstructs, the veil between worlds will break." She typed commands into an obsolete terminal, trying to intercept the fragment's frequency. On the surface, Leah and Joram, driven by a shared intuition, walked towards the points where reality seemed most fragile. She stepped into the rift projected by the telescope. He, into the one created by the knives. For a moment, both saw themselves through the veil, like distorted reflections in a lake. The object, now nearly complete, emitted a deep sound that shook the earth and the sea. In Havana, the artists who had previously celebrated the phenomenon began to disappear. Their works crumbled into piles of paint and wood. The blind musician was the last to vanish, his melody abruptly cut short. Leah, within the city of light, found the blue figure of her dreams. "The key doesn't belong to this world," he said, extending a translucent hand. "You brought it, but you cannot use it." Joram, in the forest, saw the white-haired woman emerge from the rift, holding the humming machine. "You have until dawn," she warned. "After that, both worlds will collapse." In the final moment, Leah chose to destroy the watch, while Joram shattered the knives. The object disintegrated into golden particles, and the realities separated. By morning, Havana awoke under a normal sky, with artists regaining their memories, but not their works. In the forest, the knives had turned to dust, and the historian no longer remembered why he was there. Leah kept the watch fragments in an empty pocket, feeling that something remained incomplete. In a distant square, a new mural had appeared overnight, a golden key suspended between two constellations, with the inscription, "The path is the answer."